What's going on, guys? It's Crash Out MMA, and the UFC is ruined. Alex Pereira has now lost the belt to Magomed Ankalaev. There were some other fights. Justin Gaethje had a great comeback performance, and Jalen Turner needs to retire pretty much. That's what I would summarize UFC 313 as. But the main event killed my interest in this sport. The sport's dead. Magomed Ankalaev is champ now. I'm obviously kidding here, but I'm only exaggerating a little bit. It really sucks that Magomed beat Pereira. I think the light heavyweight division is effectively dead at this point, and I do have some strong words for Magomed. I don't think this fight was a robbery. That being said, I do think that there's some things that factor in here that people didn't talk about. Now, I'll save this fight for a little bit later. I want to talk about a couple more first that I found even more exciting, and I actually enjoyed the outcome. Overall, I went 5-4 on picks on this card, which was the same as the last fight night, so I actually didn't really do that great, to be honest, which sucks. But, I was doing good at first until these last three fights. But yeah, first one I wanted to talk about for sure was Justin Gaethje, Rafael Fiziev. So this fight was very interesting to me. I picked Fiziev just because I thought Justin's chin wasn't going to be great coming back from the Holloway knockout, and I thought that Rafael Fiziev's shots that he would land, and he did land some shots, I didn't think they were going to be as good. Now, what I didn't expect was Rafael Fiziev to come into this fight with a grappling game plan to start. Actually, it might have been more of a spontaneous thing. It didn't look like his entire plan was grappling or anything. But it did show me that Justin Gaethje still hasn't really improved his ground game, and that's a very clear way to beat him, is just to take him down, which he still has decent takedown defense, but, if you're getting easily out-grappled by Rafael Fiziev, you might be a little bit cooked. That's all I'll say. But this fight was pretty similar to the first one in some ways, where Rafael Fiziev had a lot of success early and then sort of waned as the fight went on. It was different because Rafael Fiziev won pretty easily round one. Justin Gaethje clearly won round two, and Rafael Fiziev opened up round three looking really good. And I was like, oh, wait, Rafael might pull out the 29-28 victory here, but then Justin Gaethje took over in that round as Rafael got, tired. And it is worth saying Rafael Fiziev came into this fight on very short notice after Dan Hooker got injured, so I can't really blame him that much for gassing out. It wasn't a terrible loss or anything, and actually I think this boosts his stock a little bit because he looked better, I think, in this fight than he did in the first fight. Well, at least similar. Like, he was very competitive with Justin. I think he has a great sort of future in this division, and I think he beats a lot of the guys above him. That being said, for a more detailed recap of what happened, round one, we saw Rafael Fiziev, go out there, trade some shots with Justin, hitting him with some low kicks and some body kicks. The body kick was a huge weapon for Rafael Fiziev throughout this fight, and ultimately he manages to take down Justin Gaethje, and he's just hitting him with these huge, body shots on the ground, like these ground and pound body shots. And then, it almost looked like he was going to get Justin with a reverse triangle, but he wasn't able to pull that off. Justin gets back to his feet, tries to grapple a little bit in the first round, nothing comes of it, and Rafael just lands slightly more shots in the first round, and it goes to him. Round two, Justin starts doing a lot better, and about halfway through the round, drops him badly with a left uppercut. He ducks, he slips one of Rafael Fiziev's right hands, I believe it was, gets a collar tie, and slams him with this massive uppercut, drops him badly, and I actually thought it was going to be over when I first saw Rafael get dropped. I was like, oh, Justin Gaethje just knocked him out. But no, Justin Gaethje starts ground and pounding him. Rafael Fiziev manages to recover. Props to the ref for not stopping it there. A lot of refs would have, just been like, oh, you got dropped badly, and stopped it immediately, and we wouldn't have got to see round three, which was great. But Rafael Fiziev recovers, but ultimately he gets caught by Justin Gaethje's, kind of chaotic, striking style a little bit more. He looked a little bit more hesitant than he normally does, Fiziev did, and he got caught a decent amount in the second round, and I thought it was very clearly Justin Gaethje. Some people I heard say 10-8. It was definitely not a 10-8 round, but it was sort of a jaw-dropping moment seeing him get dropped by Gaethje. You know, I didn't expect that. And Gaethje was eating shots throughout this fight that I didn't think he was going to be able to take, and that's why I picked against him, actually. I thought those kind of shots were going to hurt him a lot more than they did, but it turns out his chin recovered well. He's doing well. Round 3 was a great round. Rafael Fiziev came out looking super explosive, going out there and just, you know, he hit him with like 5 body kicks in a row. He was low kicking him. He was hitting him with some good punches. But Justin Gaethje ultimately started taking over because Rafael Fiziev got really tired towards the end of or towards the middle of the round and was, looking super labored when he threw shots, and he wasn't looking very explosive, which, is probably due to the short notice aspect of this fight. But Justin ultimately catches him with a head kick that looks like it hurt him a little bit. We did get to see a couple of the Fiziev matrix dodges in this fight, which was really cool. But, it was a close competitive fight. I thought that it was clear 29-28 Gaethje. Rafael Fiziev did look good round 3, though, and that's what I'll say. Like, he almost beat Gaethje. If he had a little bit more cardio in him and he had just sort of gotten that third round, I think, he would have won that fight and had, more future ahead of him. But I seriously think he beats a lot of the top guys in this division still, regardless. Okay, so the next fight I wanted to talk about was Jalen Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes. I picked Jalen Turner just because I didn't think grappling was going to be a big thing in this fight. Unfortunately, I forgot Jalen Turner's retarded. And so Jalen Turner, he ended up on the ground with Ignacio Bahamondes, and he didn't really try to stand up. He just sort of stayed there and ended up in Ignacio Bahamondes' guard and just got triangled really quickly. It looked, they looked pretty competitive on the feet. Ignacio caught him with something early, but it didn't hurt him too bad. Jalen Turner was getting leg kicked a lot, but he did look pretty decent on the feet, very explosive as usual. But, he ends up on the ground with Ignacio. I believe they just sort of tripped because I don't believe either of them managed a successful takedown, as Jalen did defend the one that Ignacio shot. But, he ends up on top of Ignacio Bahamondes and, in classic Jalen Turner fashion, completely fumbles it and gets triangle choked, less than halfway through the first round, taps out. And, I was really thinking that he needs to retire right after watching that. But when I thought about it a little bit more, he's fighting guys who are, ranked top 15 material. He has lost 4 out of his last 5 fights. That being said, I think he deserves one more fight, all right? Like, give him one more fight. If he loses another fight to another unranked guy, at that point, then, it's safe to say we need to cut him from the sport. But Ignacio looked amazing in this fight. He looked very sharp on the feet. He had those leg kicks. And, he showed how well-rounded he is by getting that submission. Not too much to talk about. The fight was only 2 minutes. But it was quite impressive. Speaking of 2-minute fights, though, I wanted to talk about Bobby Green versus Mauricio Ruffy. What a fight this was. I picked Ruffy, as pretty much everybody did. I thought Bobby might actually have a little bit more success than he did. But Mauricio Ruffy went out there and delivered one of the most brutal and one of the most, flashy knockouts I think I've ever seen. It gave me very Terry Edom versus Edson Barboza vibes, actually. He landed this huge spinning wheel kick to Bobby Green. It landed perfectly, heeled a temple, and flatlined him. Mauricio Ruffy was pressuring Bobby Green badly, and, they were trading a little bit. Bobby Green got caught with something like 45 seconds or something into the fight, and it was like, this isn't looking good for Bobby. He's getting pressured back. He's basically back against the cage, right? And Mauricio Ruffy basically threw this spinning wheel kick right as Bobby Green was circling to the left, caught him, he perfectly healed a temple, flatlined him out cold. He literally fell forward onto his face. It was, I was speechless. I didn't even have a crazy reaction. I literally just sat there speechless. It was such a crazy KO. It was clean. it just shows you, how precise of a striker Mauricio Ruffy is. Just being able to throw that much varied offense. He was doing these crazy backflips at the end of the fight too. He's such an athletic guy. I just think I'm a huge fan of the fighting nerds, except for Gene Silva, and I just think Mauricio Ruffy has a bright future ahead of him. I think it's a ranked opponent next for him because Bobby Green was ranked up until he lost that fight against Paddy Pimblett. So I think that this is an exciting, an exciting prospect to watch. I think he wins against a lot of the sort of top 15 opponents. I think he would beat a guy like, you know, possibly Jalen Turner. I think he would definitely beat a guy like Benoit Saint-Denis. So I think that Mauricio Ruffy, great performance, insane knockout. If you haven't seen it, there's highlights all over YouTube. Go watch it. It was such a clean KO, and it was satisfying to watch. I felt bad for Bobby Green, I think he probably needs to think about retiring soon. Not too much left for him, but it was pretty clear they were sort of feeding him to Mauricio Ruffy in this fight. The Ruffy hype train continues. Do I think he could get fraud checked in the future? Yes, but after watching that performance, I'm just going to buy into all the hype because that was an insane knockout. And then one more thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the whole main event thing was Joshua Van versus Ray Tsuruya. Ray Tsuruya looked absolutely dog shit in this fight, if we're being honest. Joshua Van completely melted him, broke him. I thought, I knew Joshua Van was going to win. I picked Joshua Van. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer than this, but ultimately Joshua Van was easily defending Ray Tsuruya's takedowns. Ray Tsuruya was doing nothing but shoot for the legs the entire fight. He managed to get a really good arm throw at one point, I believe in round 2, and even though that did happen, he ends up fumbling that position. Joshua Van gets up, and on the feet, Joshua Van was just walking this dude down and, eating his shots. He ate a couple shots, like spinning back fists and random stuff, but ultimately he walks him down and beats the fuck out of him. He just, combos, jabs. He was absolutely demolishing Ray Tsuruya in this fight. And I was really happy to see it. I love Joshua Van. I was believing in him as a prospect for a long time. So I thought that this was a great performance by Joshua Van. He just completely shut down Ray Tsuruya's game. He out-scrambled him, got up every time he got taken down, and defended probably 80% of the takedowns. Just wouldn't let him sort of succeed in that wrestling. And Ray Tsuruya ended up looking tired. He got dropped by a body kick and pretended he got hit with a groin shot, which was really, shameful of Ray Tsuruya, because Joshua Van did actually hit him to the cup at one point in the fight with a sort of teep that he hit a little bit low, but then later on in the fight, he ends up at the end of, or in round 3, he throws a teep, and it ends up hitting him right on the belt line, like not a groin shot, but Ray Tsuruya drops down, pretends it's a groin shot, and not a great look for Ray Tsuruya. Joshua Van was, absolutely demolishing this dude. Just showed he was just a better striker everywhere. And, I think Joshua Van has a lot of opportunities ahead of him. Ray Tsuruya, after watching that performance, I no longer really think of him as a prospect in the flyweight division. I'm more thinking of him sort of as just a guy who's going to stay out of the rankings and beat people who don't know how to grapple. Like, if I'm rewatching that fight, I'm just going to think, anybody who has somewhat decent takedown defense and somewhat decent striking is going to beat this guy. I think he was sort of being fed cans, and now that we've seen this fight against Joshua Van, I think Ray Tsuruya, while he could evolve his game and get better, I think he's pretty much going to lose to anybody really that has that sort of combination of decent striking and decent takedown defense. I think he relies too much on his wrestling, and he's super one-dimensional. That being said, I'm going to move on to the main event. I'll talk about some of these other prelims down here later on because they were actually somewhat entertaining, but I did want to talk about the main event, of course, because that is what everybody's talking about with this pay-per-view. So Magomed Ankalaev ultimately takes it in a very underwhelming fight. Two of the judges had it 49-46. I thought that that was actually a little bit ridiculous. I think it was pretty clearly 48-47 Alex. I think Alex clearly won round one. Big Ank got round two pretty easily, and I thought Pereira got round five really easily. Magomed Ankalaev got round four. We're going to talk about round four. I'm going to rant about that. But round three is really what the fight came down to. And I've seen a lot of controversy with this. Some people saying that they thought Alex won round three. I don't think Alex won round three, just because I think even though he did outland Magomed, he was just sort of getting walked down most of that round, and I think the pressure made him look pretty bad to the judges. So I actually had my scorecard 48-47 Magomed. The main problem in this fight is Pereira refused to throw anything. I think he was scared the entire fight of getting taken down, and so he sort of, stood there. He didn't really throw any punches at all. He threw a lot of leg kicks. He had a left leg head kick that was open so much that he could have thrown, and he barely threw it. He threw it like twice, I believe. So, there's a lot of things that Alex could have done, but Magomed, did kind of shut him down. I think Alex wins a rematch, though, just because the reason I think he looked so mid in this fight was due to Magomed, sort of having that unknown factor of the wrestling. But after seeing how mid Ankalaev's grappling looks, I think Alex wins the rematch, because I don't think he's going to fear any of Magomed's wrestling. And then I think he'll want to pressure forward more, and he will be less afraid to open up and throw combinations and more punches and stuff. But that being said, basically what happened is round one, Alex Pereira outlanded Magomed, hurt him pretty badly with a couple of leg kicks. Round two, Magomed goes out there and outlands Pereira pretty significantly and hurts him bad at the end of round two. And then round three is the sort of controversial one, because Alex Pereira did actually land more than Magomed if you look at the stats. A lot of leg kicks, to be fair. But the thing is, Magomed was walking him down and pressuring him the whole time and landed, what some would say were more impressive shots. I think there's a decent argument that you could say Alex Pereira won that fight. I don't think it's a robbery because of that, but I think this fight was very competitive just, from that fact. Pereira, even throwing very little offense, made this fight hyper competitive. Anyone saying this was a dominant performance from Magomed Ankalaev, anybody saying that Magomed Ankalaev destroyed Pereira or anything like that, they don't know what they're talking about. This was very close, especially round three is what it came down to. Round four, though. Round four is why I believe that the division is completely cooked. Round four is why I think that Magomed Ankalaev should be cut from the UFC. Round four is the reason why I think he should be stripped of the belt. It was just such a travesty of a round. Magomed, this little scared bitch, bro. He literally hugged against Alex Pereira and shoved him into the cage for the full round. That's literally all he did. And the entire time, the commentary was glazing him, pretending like he was doing, good work by basically failing takedowns repeatedly against the fence. I think we need to do a rules change in MMA and make it so that, holding someone against the fence does not count as control time. Because really, all Magomed was doing was failing takedowns and holding on to Alex for dear life. Alex had great moments trying to reverse him. Ultimately, they were broken up, and, it was just, Magomed spent the entire round pushing him into the fence, smudging him. Was it, potentially good fight IQ, trying to lock down one more round, get it, to secure the scorecards? Maybe, but people who fight like that shouldn't be allowed to win championship belts in the UFC. That round really annoyed me. I'm not a fan of Magomed for that reason. I've never really been a huge fan of Magomed, but, round four, what a disgrace of a fighter Magomed is for doing that. I would have had much more respect for him if he went out there and, even potentially risked losing the round to Alex and actually made it a fight and actually fought him instead of sitting against the fence failing takedowns for 5 minutes. And then round 5, I actually think I had for Pereira. Most people had it for Pereira. Some people gave it to Magomed, which I don't understand. Alex landed the better shots, and I think, yeah, he had him like a little bit hurt with a head kick at one point too, which was the biggest moment of that round. The story of this fight is Alex refused to throw punches, and Magomed can't grapple. That's basically the story of this fight, and, I think rematch, Alex wins easily. And, after seeing that performance, I low-key think Yuri could beat Magomed. I'm not super impressed with him. I'm glad, he's probably going to get the immediate rematch with Alex, as I will pick Alex in that rematch, because I don't think Magomed can do anything in that fight. But, this kind of ruins the division for me. Very annoying. Nobody wanted that to happen. Anybody who says they wanted Magomed to beat Alex Pereira is either just a super biased hater of Pereira, like Kenny Okoye, or they're just lying and trying to be a contrarian. So, yeah, this sucks. Alex lost the belt, but he will get it back once they do an immediate rematch. And then a couple more interesting fights I wanted to talk about before we stop. Bruno Ferreira versus Armen Petrosyan. I picked Bruno Ferreira here. I thought he was going to win via knockout and potentially round 1, but he does ultimately get the submission on Armen Petrosyan, going for a lot more of a grappling heavy approach. Armen Petrosyan did piece him up a little bit in the first round and, sort of land better shots in my opinion, but, I knew Bruno Ferreira has too high of a finishing potential. I picked him by knockout. I saw him potentially like walking down Armen but getting hit a lot in the process, but then landing like a big combination or something and knocking him out. But, I'll take the Bruno Ferreira win. It was an impressive win, I'll say. And, Armen Petrosyan, he looks great on the feet as always, but I just think that Bruno Ferreira is a better prospect. Not too much to talk about there, but, I called Bruno Ferreira winning, and I thought the submission was quite interesting. Carlos Leal versus Alex Morono. I don't know what people expected. Not too much to talk about here. Carlos Leal is, athletic, strong, explosive. Alex Morono's plotty and old. So, yeah, he knocks him out, finishes him pretty easily. Myron Santos versus Francis Marshall. I saw some controversy on this one. A lot of people saying that Francis Marshall should have won that fight. In my opinion, I did think it was a close fight, but I think Myron Santos won pretty comfortably. I think that Myron Santos actually won rounds 2 and 3 on damage. Round 1, you have to give to Francis Marshall there. Round 2 and 3, Francis Marshall did out-grapple him, but Myron Santos just outlanded him by a lot. So I think you give rounds 2 and 3 for sure to Myron Santos, and I don't agree with the split decision. I think it should have been for him, but it was definitely a competitive fight, don't get me wrong. Myron Santos still has a lot of future left for him in featherweight division. Last fight to talk about, though, Jordan Santos versus Ozzy Diaz. I picked Jordan Santos because Ozzy Diaz I didn't think really had a chin. I guess he suddenly developed a chin. Whatever. This fight was like super low-level MMA. Watching it was genuinely, like I wrote down in my notes, two drunk guys fighting. It literally looked like two drunks fighting in a bar. They did not look very skilled. It was pretty low-level MMA, Not my favorite fight to watch. It wasn't a terrible fight or anything, but not too much grappling was involved here. But, Ozzy Diaz won a fight. Good for him. Overall went 5-4 on this card for picks, which sucks. Didn't do great. Next card I'll do much better. Don't worry. I didn't expect some of the fighters like Jalen Turner to fumble as hard as they did. But, Magomed Ankalaev's champion now. That sucks. But Alex will be getting the belt back soon. Like, subscribe, comment, tell me what you guys thought about the card. And I'll see you in the next video. I'll be posting tomorrow talking about some matchups to make after, this card for all the big fighters. So when that comes out, that'll be pretty exciting. See you guys next video.